Shalom, Ubrez to Yahweh, Bashemi, Yahushai, Bashem Kakadash, the apostles and elders, great most on it, rule well, and Shalom to the prophets that are Mike Sarah truth. You got this article on the nation, because you have, what did Trump call it, the big, beautiful bill, being passed, which is, funding of various different things kind of all bundled together. But reading on says on the nation, it says Trump's big bill is building a big police state, and yeah, that's been since he's come in. The fullness of that is clear to observe. It's been evident for a hot minute that it's essentially been pushed. It's essential for that it's been pushed. The big kind of leverage towards it has been ICE and immigration reform, deporting people, which was even with his first term was a big focus, with the wall. Now it's shipping them out and whatnot, and then that require it's going to require expansion or clarification on police powers to do certain things. And it's been noticeable as well with people going into the US where not as much. I don't even know about as far as immigration, but the stories I've been hearing about, it's like been people just visiting where when they're going in to visit, they're having like their social media background, social media posts and whatnot being checked and things like this. So, with the Palantir as well being spoken about, being discussed, and them getting government contracts, getting essentially being given room to kind of address and deal with certain aspects of the what do you call it? Address and deal with certain aspects of national security, I guess you would say, or like information management, dealing with how they kind of address and deal with the general populace. It's like what the NSA was doing. It's evident that something's a structure's being built, because there's what amid all the frenzied MAGA agitprop and bullface lying that have marked the final stages of Donald Trump's signature domestic policy bill, it's been easy to lose sight of its transformative policy agenda. Much of the controversy spurred by the sweeping legislation concerns its evisceration of healthcare coverage, a stunning $1 trillion in combined cuts. $1 trillion, I guess it would be in combined cuts, not $1 trillion. $1 trillion in combined cuts to Medicaid, the state-based program, funding healthcare access for low-income Americans, and allied coverage to poor patients under the Affordable Care Act. But obviously, military funding is not going down. Aid towards the state of Israel's not going down. So, the focus of where, what America's for, what they're focusing on is clear. They ain't caring about keeping those on the bottom up. What did it say? For low income and allied coverage population, but the bill which emerged out of out of its Senate reconciliation session in a blizzard of votes to amend it on Monday also erects a permanent immigration police state with more than $150 billion in outlays to expand the horrific surveillance, detention, and rendition regime created under the Laken Riley Act. The measure will carry out Trump's pledge to make the terror wreaked by masked immigration and customs enforcement officers alongside fucking hell, that just covers up so much of the screen. I mean, as much as I'd love to pay. Alongside federal and National Guard troops in Los Angeles, the standard operating procedure for immigrant roundups going forward. Yeah, you know, the military getting involved, the National Guard getting involved. And it's, again, like they said, it's normalizing it, that becoming a standard. And then, you know, going beyond that as escalation. So the scale of the proposed increase in ICE funding alone makes for grim dystopian reading. As Don Moynihan notes, ICE's annual budget for detentions would skyrocket from 3.4 billion in the present fiscal year to 30 to 45 billion until the end of the 2029. Fucking hell, that's insane. And the figure that outstrips, so 45 billion. I said a 365% increase. That's fucking absurd. But that's the thing is like with these bills, with these government contracts, it's wealth transfers, man. A lot of this shit is just wealth transfers where you have people who they're just fucking hell, that is absurd. You know, the people that are managing these things and organizing these what's it called, these program enacting these government contracts, bro, they're getting nice, bro. Remember in the UK it was what were they saying, they needed to produce more PPE, personal protection equipment. And then it was like after like 3-6 months, it was like $1 billion something plus being given in contracts to like family members, friends, etc. And then like a month plus in, they hadn't even like produced anything. And then multiple months later, they started producing, but it was at a rate where it was you know, it wasn't even up to snuff. Because, you know, the origin of a lot of these things is just to, you know, it's just throwing money around, man. I figured out strips the combined funding of all 50 federal prisons. Here, per Moynihan, are some additional spending comparisons. The ICE detention budget is larger than the total budget for USAID used to be. The ICE detention budget increase is larger than cuts in education or for SNAP and the BBB. It's larger than cuts that I don't know what none of these are, but it's fucking absurd. Okay, I get it. These massive giveaways are earmarked for an agency that shows a decidedly cursory regard for the fundamental protections afforded to all Americans by the rule of law in conducting their expensive raids on workers and families that are not suspected of any overt criminal activity. ICE agents have masked themselves to shun responsibility for their actions and illegal abuse of power commonly associated with Eastern Bloc police states. Reviewing the agency's recent arrest record, it's not hard to see why. Agents don't want their identities known. On an unprecedented scale, they are rounding up and detaining immigrants who aren't accused of any criminal activity. ICE's apprehension of immigrants facing criminal charges are up 128% over the last year. But the agency's detention of immigrants without criminal records has increased by more than 1,400%. There was something, I can't remember if it was this one, but they said like there's a minimal, there was a minimum quota of how many migrants they had to arrest. So, you know, they're going raggo, man. The mandates are millions of federal agency. So to education, other arms of the federal government moving ahead. Okay. So yeah, but the real damage here, skip down a bit. So this is but the real damage here, as NPR reporters Drew Joff Block and Miles note. Concerns the creation of a national surveillance state on steroids without any public debate or consultation with Congress. This level of integration among federal agencies handling sensitive personal data has never existed before. And yeah, for the US, it's a new thing, but a lot of European countries, there's already like big databases on, general citizens and whatnot between, where they work, live, and various other forms of information as well, just kind of collated. Because America, you still have that big dispersed state by state system, people kind of be like, oh, there's things they expect to be managed on the state level, then like a fair few things on the federal level. But obviously that's all basically being done away with Trump's being used to kind of hammer together that national level, what's the term, federal level database. It says what this level of insight among federal handling measures has never existed. Okay, they write, and experts call it a sea of change that inches the U.S. closer to having a roster of citizens, something the country has never embraced. A centralized national database of Americans' personal information has long been considered a third rail, especially to privacy advocates as well as political conservatives who traditionally opposed mass data consolidation by the federal government. But, with it being done by Trump as well, and him being the, not even spokesperson, he would be he's like the figurehead of, certain school of thought, just a certain kind of mindset towards politics, and because he's, people that are following him, they're invested, they're highly invested, they're not even, batting an eye when Albizi was doing it, when Biden was doing it, these men were foaming at the mouth to come against it, but then because it's Trump doing it, they're down. It's actually good. He's draining the swamp. He's taking out the deep state. But then what to say, such concerns are far from theoretical. The Electronic Registration Information Center, the lead federal agency charged with compiling voter citizenship data, has seen several red states terminate participation in the program over privacy concerns. Meanwhile, David Jennings, the DHS administrator in charge of the Federal Safeguard Voter Eligibility Initiative, the Trumpified version of the electronic registry, still awaiting final congressional approval, telegraphed its claims last month when he hosted a briefing with Clayton Mitchell, a leading election-denying attorney who sought to overturn the results of the 2020 election on Trump's behalf. When you combine the new surveillance regime for citizenship claims with the dramatic enforcement and detention capacities created for DHS and ICE under the spending bill, you have a formula for an untrammeled expansion of American authoritarianism in all directions under the bogus directive to clamp down on an immigrant crime wave that simply doesn't exist. And it doesn't even matter what the realities of it is the main kind of thing is within the frame of American immigration politics is the narrative has been produced, and there's been various kind of points and moments where you've kind of had like particular events where they can point to, oh look, migrants are doing this, or just footage of people just coming across the border and whatnot, and how easy it is for people to come in from Mexico as illegals and work. But again, it's like the reason them men are getting let in is by and large because you have a lot of these corporations, these big corporations that are utilizing them as dirt cheap labor, where they don't want to pay official wages. They'll just hire men, have men off the books, pay them peanuts, and then men are happy to get peanuts because they're fucking working. But that's what you call it, that's the mess there is. And then because once those narratives are in place, certain actions become justifiable, acceptable, or people even cheer. And it's like with people seeing people that vote for Trump, people on the right wing, they're seeing like Northern Kingdom getting grabbed up. That's going to cause them to cheer. And they're like, okay, yeah, these things are to my benefit. They're not thinking about the long term expansion of building those databases and whatnot. So I ain't got nothing to hide, but then well, why they gotta look? What they looking for, man? And then as well, it's kind of the what's at the end of the line of that set of actions, and that's the thing that then that's the thing they're not fucking what do you call it? What's the end of the line? That's the thing they're not meditating on. They're not thinking about those things. They're just gonna kind of walk into it because they're not really into such things. Yeah, I'll read this. Revelation 12:12, it says, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And yeah, coming down with great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time. And the thing that, needs to be put in, because what, the four winds, the destruction's being held back. Because what, you saw how Iran, the situation escalated out of nowhere, it just a quick back and forth just blew up out of nowhere. And that really shows you the winds, that destruction's being restrained. Because why? There's certain prophecies that need to come to pass. The MOTB is a big one. And that's what, these systems, these structures being built, especially in America, are for. In a lot of other countries, that shit's just set. It's already set up. He set you up. It's already been set up to where it's that's normalized. That might not even be something anyone kind of bats an eyelid at. They might just be looking at like, yeah, it's a normal. But it's the frameworks, the skeleton to be put into these systems, because it already justifies tracking certain things, being like, okay, you got to check in, you basically need to prove you're not one of these particular kind of people. For now, that's kind of how it's being pushed, but then it's going to be expanded in scope over time. It says what? 1 Thessalonians 5:1, but at the times and seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. And yeah, that thing, people thinking peace and safety, then sudden destruction. And that's, with how this is being pushed through. It's going through, Congress, the Senate, whatever the fuck the American terms are, something Parliament. But yeah, it's gone through Senate, it's gone to the House of Representatives. and then it's once it's green lit, or whatever adjustments they make, then these things become law, at least whilst Trump's in office. But then the speed, the acceleration that's been brought in with Trump getting back in office, wouldn't be a surprise. These things getting enacted on, getting stamped down on, and it being expanded as well, because they've basically built the narrative to where it's people are just kind of ooh and accepting it. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Shalom, shalom.